Welcome to this week's edition of Move Well with Takia Geddes and Anthony Saul. We are so excited to be here with you today. We are talking about one of our favorite topics, as is the title of our podcast, Moving Well, and some of the myths that people tend to apply to their own workouts or hear, and then have that myth discourage them from moving forward on their journey. And or operate within their journey and not get the results that they really could be getting with the time and energy they're putting into working out. So let's just jump in, Anthony. Like, what's the first myth on our list today?
So I think this is one that we've touched upon kind of briefly and vaguely in other podcasts, but it's this idea that the number on the scale and your overall weight is the biggest parameter of like what your health or your goals should be surrounded by. And I think this is something that's deeply ingrained in almost like the biggest part of our population of people that I've encountered, whether it's my clients or my friends or family. And I feel like this is a particularly just regressive kind of way of looking at fitness, and it does a lot more harm than good a lot of the time, because it kind of oversimplifies why we're exercising and why we're making the choices that we are. And this has kind of been one of the more challenging stigmas and mindsets to break of people when you're trying to help them achieve their goals. So I think this would be a really good one to start with.
Oh, I totally agree. How you look at your journey is super important, and the mindset that you take when you're stepping on it is really going to be and set the tone for the climate of the journey. And so if you're obsessing about the scale, it sends a message of almost like that if like you're worried about failure. So you're already in a kind of a lack mindset, a mindset of fear, a fear mindset. And there may, for every person who has that kind of outlook or that kind of obsession or narrow focus, there tends to be other things behind it, right? We don't know everyone's history with food and their relationship with it. And so we can't even begin to generalize about how to shift that for every person. But what we can do is say that when you're looking at weight, the number on the scale doesn't mean anything without detail as far as the goal of your journey should be likely geared toward health, unless you have some kind of a fitness competition that you're training for or a sport that you're training for, right? Everyone's goal is going to be different if it's sport related or athletic performance related. But if it's simply for health and wellness, then the scale doesn't mean anything outside of context. So if you don't understand what the composition of that weight is, how much of that is your bone tissue, your organ tissue, your body fat, and your lean muscle mass, right? Then and water weight, because you're mixing them all together and saying, oh, I'm just fat. And that's just it's a very uneducated way to look at it. It's uninformed. And uninformed activities that you do repetitively lead to more and more, I think, low level emotions and ebbs and flows in emotions, the expectations that don't get met because they're not based in fact. So I think one of the most important things to understand is that the weight really is not the issue. It's it's the health markers, right? So when you are able to get into a bit higher lean body mass than fat content, right? And there are certain markers for women and men in those ranges, generally like 28%, or between 18 and 28% for women generally tends to be where we fall. That tends to be in a healthy range. Beyond that, having a third of your body weight being body fat you start to it's not just about aesthetics. It's about, the health indications that and implications that it has for you. And so it's important to have all the information. And I think one of the things that kind of that is kind of the underlying current of the expectations not being met is this idea that that one, you're going to lose body fat in certain areas, that you can do that, you can spot train. There are some like machines and some questionable creams, but expecting certain parts of your body to change in a certain way, your body is going to change in the way that it sees fit. And everyone loses body fat differently, depending on your body type, depending on your history with food and your metabolism. Everyone's body is just different. But I think underneath of it is this concept that that there's a certain number that I need to reach in order for me to be where I want to be. And it really isn't about that at all. It's about whether or not you feel good, whether or not your health markers are improving, and whether or not the goals that you set are in alignment with that kind of larger picture, right? Mm-hmm. And so a lot of people feel like they're failing when they're on a journey, a wellness journey, and they're trying to lose weight because they think that they're in a plateau before they're not even in a plateau.
Yeah.
If you are only using the scale to measure your success, then you're missing out on body fat loss, that change in composition we just talked about. And so you could, in effect, lose body fat, let's say lose 5 pounds of body fat, gain 5 pounds of muscle and some water, and in effect weigh more than when you started, but be healthier.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
look better to yourself in the mirror.
Yeah. And that's one of the more frustrating things that I see is that when people we're lucky enough to have access to an in-body machine that really accurately is able to document all of these different variables like body fat percentage and muscle gain and stuff like that. So seeing the disappointment on people's faces when they see that their weight hasn't changed and having to break down and really explain the fact that it's incredible that we put on 4 pounds of muscle in 2 months, and just getting it into people's minds and kind of defragmenting their preconceived notions of, oh my God, the weight has gone up, so it's all over. This is the end.
Right.
And
I've wasted my time. I've wasted my money.
Yeah, and just breaking down how incredible that 4 pounds of muscle actually is, and just getting in their minds that this has been working. This is what we've been looking for is a big challenge, but it's an important one. And and just describing those other variables. And if we're not lucky enough to have access to something like an in-body machine, is just looking at those other variables aside from weight, like how my clothes are fitting, or if and getting like if you're starting to get compliments on your face thinning out, or just those little things that you could tend to overlook when you just fixate on the scale are really important, obviously.
And the other thing, if you're one of those people that really needs some kind of a measurement, then you can use the scale, like a Tanita scale that has a body fat percentage and it's not going to be as accurate as something like an in-body machine, but you can see trends downward in body fat, knowing that you're heading in the right direction, and also use a tape measure so you can see that. So a pound of a muscle and a pound of fat weigh exactly the same, but they present differently because one's more dense. So a beach ball and a baseball weigh exactly the same. So a baseball is muscle, and the beach ball will be fat. It's fluffy. It has more air. It has,
takes up space.
It takes up more space. So you can also, track these trends with a tape measure if that's your goal, if that's something you need on your journey, if you're doing it by yourself and you need that to help you feel successful. I would also just really encourage you to lean into appreciating your body. I can't tell you enough how many times I've seen how hard people are on themselves in here, and how much it negatively affects their results, because they're so focused you know, I can tell you even from personal experience, when I used to count calories and I would try to be very meticulous about my food, I would actually gain weight.
Mm-hmm.
When I just eat intuitively and I listen to my body, I eat when I'm hungry, I stop eating when I'm satisfied, and I move on a regular basis with a combination of cardio and weight training, my body is great.
Mm-hmm.
It looks great to me. It feels great to me. I sleep
Energy
well.
levels,
It
yeah.
performs well, everything. But as soon as I start hyper focusing on numbers and get all in my head about, you know, looking a certain way, like when I have a photo shoot coming up or something, oh, it goes the shit in a handbasket.
Mm-hmm.
So I get it. I get it.
Yeah.
So I would just encourage people just to, I appreciate my body, and I appreciate the fact that I can move, and I appreciate the fact that I have access to food and water, and I have choices, and every day I can wake up and I can choose to eat well and eat things that serve myself. And,
Absolutely.
you know, I have a choice. A lot of people aren't even able to choose. They have at their, you know, whatever is local, and maybe they don't even have a grocery store in their neighborhood. Maybe they're a teenager and their parents are low income and they can't even afford vegetables or organic food, or, you know, so, or if you take it, you know, a step further, you know, if you're growing your own food and all you have access to are like rice and certain vegetables, and you're in your head about carbs, I mean, you know, just the rabbit hole, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I think that's a great transition to another myth that we wanted to talk to about, are these kind of like this fascination with fad diets and kind of like instant gratification culture, opposed to what you were just talking about as intuitive eating and moderation and just mindfulness.
Oh, totally. So, you know, so wait,
so like just talking about like low calorie and like fad diets and kind of this infatuation, our culture's infatuation with these diets that may get results really quickly but have adverse effects that
and not lasting results.
Absolutely.
Right? So the thing for me when I work with people, I think that whatever gets you to your goal should be able to be maintained when you get there. Absolutely. Because if you have to do something crazy to get to your goal, and then when you get there, you have to all of a sudden change it up and do something different, you're asking yourself to start and engage in habits and then change the habits again. You know how hard it is to build habits and stick with them for long enough for them to see results when you're not used to being disciplined and taking action in a way that really serves you all the time on a continuous basis. When you're making that kind of shift, you want to create a lifestyle, right? And so when people jump ship, they see the newest pill, they see the newest fad, you know, keto, and your body working on ketones alone, you know, my brain is like, what? Where are the carbs? So, you know, for some people, I get, you know, that for some people, maybe who have been in the trenches and really having a difficult time, and you're looking for an answer, and you're going to choose something, and you're hoping it works. My suggestion and my encouragement would be to educate yourself, and you can investigate that information if it intrigues you. But before you just saddle up and start riding another journey with something that may or may not work for you, like really do your research on it. Because the rules of the game, the rules of maintaining wellness are pretty simple, and they really don't change. What changes is our perception of them and the popularization of certain aspects of them. And so, but if you look underneath, the same things have been working. If you eat less calories than you expend, right, you'll get a certain result. If you eat more calories than you expend, you get a different result. And if you exercise in a certain way, you get a specific result. You know, and that's a general formula. When you introduce, you know, radical ideas to the body is going to respond radically. So you may get you know, results immediately, but they're not going to last, because the body has a certain way, a homeostasis it likes to maintain. It has a balance that it wants to keep for survival. and it's geared toward holding on to body fat for energy. That's the way we're made. And so even to lose body fat is actually pushing against our DNA, saying, hey, I want to lose body fat. I know you want to hold on to it just in case there's a famine, just in case, you know, when the winter, just so in case I have a kid, just in case, you know, I get it, but I want to go to the beach and I want to, you know, really look fly for, you know, for myself. So, you know, I think what's important is that you educate yourself on how the body works. And you don't have to be a scientist, but just understand the very tried and true principles that work. And then, you know, when you apply those, nothing, all the other stuff is frills. Like there are little extra things you can do here or there to maximize those basic principles, but the basic principles done on a repeated basis are going to give you the best results. Discipline, but there's the biggest difference between people who get results and maintain a healthy lifestyle and not, is discipline. It's just staying in the habits long enough to see the results that you want.
Yeah, and it always comes back to the ideas of consistency. It's just making those little choices day in and day out, even when things get difficult or adversity comes, or you're having a bad day at work and you really just don't want to go home and cook that the lean, healthy, whole food meal, and you want to stop at McDonald's and grab a quick burger or something like that. And it's just making the little choices every single day that add up, and like you said, applying those basic principles in a consistent and sustainable way. It really just always comes back to the not sexy phrase in terms of consistency, that it always comes back to moderation, consistency, and sustainability for sure.
And what complicates it is that we're human. We have emotions.
Absolutely.
We have psychological, reasoning and tricks we play on ourselves. We have stories we tell ourselves. We have families. We have stress, so really, that's why it's so important, I think, that we really work toward creating a lifestyle that serves us, finding our specific flow, finding the series of things that support you and being able to support yourself in that consistency. Like, if in order to work out 3 times a week, and you know that working out 3 times a week at a certain intensity on a regular basis is going to really be the aspect of fitness that's going to help you the most, and that's what's been working, that's it works, and done it long enough to see results, and then you start slipping backwards and you start like missing your workouts. And so find out what is happening, find out what the obstacle is that keeps you from being consistent, and then patch it up. Support it.
Yeah.
And then, because that's the thing, that's where we come in. That's why coaches are important, to help us see our blind spots, to help us see where we're fudging up and where we're sabotaging ourselves, and where we just need a little more support, because it can really be the difference between packing your gym bag the night before and not. Could be the difference in you working out 3 times a week or not. Could be the difference in you losing 20 pounds and getting off your diabetes medication. You know what I mean? Like, it literally could be just that simple. If you just make a little tweak that is the link in the chain that's sticking out a little bit, and you push it in, and then the chain is now connected and you're flowing again.
Absolutely. And I think that kind of is a good transition into this idea that to get your goals, we need to work out every single day, spending long, arduous hours in the gym, and this misconception of how hard people need to push themselves to get to whatever goal that is, whether it's weight loss or muscle gain or whatever. And I think that's a huge misconception, because it can be a lot more simpler if we just apply the idea of consistency.
Yes. The body responds to progression. Now, I didn't say it responds to extreme progression, because it doesn't. It actually responds negatively to shock. So if consistency means that, and progression means in the world of fitness, is that you do a little bit more than you did before. And so if you were using 3-pound weights and you did that for 3 weeks, and now that 20 reps that you're doing is like, you don't even feel the weight in your hand anymore, your body's not going to change because you need a stimulus that is intense enough for your body to change.
Mm-hmm.
So then perhaps you bump up to 8-pound weights and you start doing, 10 to 12 reps, and this is just an example.
Mm-hmm.
And you do that consistently enough until that weight feels, like it's easy. Like that last couple reps should be challenging every set. The last couple reps, you should think, I want to quit now. So that means I need to do 2 more.
Mm-hmm.
Like just when you want to stop, you need to at least do 2 or 3 more. And that's progression,
Mm-hmm.
And I think this goes hand in hand with kind of having a practice. I think logging your workouts, especially if you're by yourself, is really important because progress can't be measured in your head. You need some kind of a track record to follow to know what you did realistically, because our memory of what we did is usually very different than actually what happened. Eyewitness accountability is very poor, even when we're looking at ourselves, especially when we're looking at ourselves. So I would just say that I think progression looked at like a flower growing, like you can't see a flower growing. So that's kind of how we are in the gym. We just need to be progressing a little bit each time. And progressing doesn't always mean adding more weight. Sometimes it means introducing a different type of stimulus that is a challenge to the body, simply because the body hasn't done that challenge before. Mm-hmm. And that it has the same degree of stress as it would if you added weight, right? Mm-hmm. Or working the muscle in a different way, or doing a different exercise for the same muscle group, which is basically all saying the same thing. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's why it's important to track, because if you've done, let's say, a bench press every time you've done chest work, maybe next time you work on a physio ball. Mm-hmm. And you use some stabilizer muscles, that's going to have a different effect. You might even have to use less weight than you were using before.
Absolutely.
So these are just, this is the way that you look at the concept of working out and progression, I think, is one of the most important ways that you can keep yourself from feeling frustrated, with kind of that concept that you were sharing, that the question of working so hard is not about jumping around and getting sweaty and pushing as much weight as you possibly can. It's about progression. Mm-hmm. People, they use that term is used a lot. People say progress, not perfection, but it's the truth. Like it's legitimately the truth, like legitimately facts. Mm-hmm. That's how we grow.
Yeah, it can be, and this is another difficult message to relay all of the time, because people want to look at the radical examples that they may see in like the media or on TV, where people, hey, I lost 100 pounds in 6 months by eating 600 calories and working out 7 times a week or whatever it is. So it is, again, it kind of goes back to the fad diets that we talked about. People wanting instant gratification and the feeling that they really did something every single workout, and it's easy to overlook the like we said, the unsexy phrase of consistency and sustainability. So I'm sure you've seen this a lot, where you have a new client who is just really excited to get into it. They're really like motivated at this moment, so they want to work out 7 days a week, and they're like, hey, this workout was too easy, you got to kick my butt like more, and then they start to wane off as the weeks go on, and we see injuries awry, or the excuses start to come in, or just a number of different variables that may deter them from their consistency. Yeah. Whereas we will always promote that 3 to 4 days a week, 45 minutes to an hour a day, or whatever you can fit in, and just obviously working on that progression and consistency. And that's always going to be the more reliable and more sustainable way to do it.
Yes. I think just kind of it's along the same lines as whatever you do to get to your goal should be what you do to to maintain your
For
success.
the rest of your life. Yeah.
Yeah. And so if you want to think about your working out plan as something that you're going to do forever, you can't kill yourself in the gym every time you go.
Absolutely.
You can't always be in pain.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's another myth. It's like you have to be so sore after every workout or it's not a good workout. That's bogus. Yeah. That's bogus. You can break down muscle tissue and not be like so sore that you can't touch your chest or touch your bicep. Like, progression is more accepted by the body because you're not making yourself so sore. You're not introducing pain, which actually could interrupt your ability to have success and grow. So your body is adapting. You're giving your body time to adapt. When someone first starts out, they want to come in and go gung ho, and I feel you on this, Anthony. So when someone first comes, they don't realize. I think they have a misconception of how sedentary they've been, misconception of how weak their body really is, and how fragile they are.
Yeah.
If I were to just listen to them and bring them in and just start having them pump, as much as they could do for 5 or 6 or 7 reps, they wouldn't be able to move the next day.
Yeah.
And they would likely hurt themselves because their joints wouldn't have been able to catch up, So part of the reason for progression is safety. And, so in the beginning, when someone's brand new to exercise, I always start them with lighter weight and more reps so that their joints have an ability to catch up. Right. We have to get healthy joints to be able to support heavier load. We can't just start loading you up. Because what are you going to hold it up with? Right. So these are things that people don't necessarily think about, but I think these are the nuances that kind of make what we do kind of always going to be around. Like I know we'll always have a place in people's plans because, it's hard. You're hard to see the picture for the frame, and who has time to study all the sciences and learn everything about every aspect of wellness. But yeah, so I think I think this is one of those topics that I think people should really take heed to, like really get that progress really is the thing. It is the sexiest thing ever. And if you're going to beat it's like tortoise and the hare. Right. It's like people who come in January and hit it every day of the week and they're pumping and they're sweating and they're jumping and they're in every class and they're spinning and they're doing that. And then they get results. They look great. And you're trotting along and you've only lost, a pound a week only, or a half a pound a week. And they've lost 20 pounds in the last, 2 months. They're not going to be there in another 4 weeks. Come February, March, they're not even going to be there anymore.
Yeah.
It's not sustainable. Because what happens too, I find, is that when people get into that kind of more is more, sometimes more is just, they think more is better, but often more is just more, or more is dangerous. So when you get into that mindset, what you think is that I have to maintain this in order to keep being successful. And that means that if I can't, like my schedule changes, one thing changes in the matrix and I can't do any of it anymore. If I can't do all of it, I can't do any of it. And that's part of the reason people stop coming.
No, absolutely. Do you got any more topics that you have in mind? What do you got for us?
The protein conversation, I think, is important. I think there has been some shifts in our understanding of the protein needs for the body over the last, decade or so. And I think it hasn't really trickled out into the mainstream as far as some of the fads have. And so just understanding that, protein is important, but it's not the only thing that's important. You have to, you fuel your workouts with carbohydrates, right? And you have to have sugars to burn, and so the no carb diets, like all that, I would stay away. I would find out what works for you. So let me stick to the topic. I go off on tangents. So protein. So there's this concept that we have to have, hundreds of grams of protein a day. And the more you work out, the more protein you need. And the thing is, the body needs as much protein as it needs. and it doesn't necessarily triple because your workouts triple.
Mm-hmm.
It takes the same amount of protein to heal. Mm-hmm. So what I would say is there's a baseline of the last study I read for women especially, like 0.78 grams per pound of body weight got people to gain lean muscle. That was the bare minimum that people could do. I think a safer range would be like 0.8, 0.82 grams per pound of body weight is going to be kind of the standard for most people to be able to gain lean mass. And then, the only other there are other conversations to be had around that, depending on, like what your goals are. Again, if it's performance or if it's bodybuilding, there are certain cases and certain times of day that might be beneficial to do more or less protein. But for the average person who's really just looking to create a plan for themselves and be consistent and gain lean mass and be healthy and look good in their clothes and feel good in their bodies, then we're talking 0.82 grams per pound of body weight is going to be kind of where you want to be. And with this concept, understand that the body doesn't operate linearly. Like, so I'm still operating. And when I wake up in the morning, I fasted, but I'm still have energy stores from the food I ate from dinner and probably even if I like lunch the previous day. So I didn't like go to sleep and then like lose all of my stores
Start
and like
over in the morning. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, if you ate a lot of protein that day and then the next day you didn't eat, the same amount, it's okay. The studies that I've seen too say that, the kind of previously the 24, there was a 2 to 6 hour period after your workout where you needed to replenish that protein or you lost out on the reparative benefits. And I think that depending on which kind of perspective you're coming from, whether you're coming from the, fast or fed state of mind, after your workout, you've fasted because you don't really want to eat right before your workout. So you fasted, then now you're in a state of burning fat. And you may want to hold on to that for a few hours and continue allowing yourself to go into EPOC, right? But there's also the, and if you're looking to satisfy your needs for performance, then perhaps you want to eat in that short window right after to replenish the muscle right after. So one is, is more aesthetic based, more, healthful based if you're looking to lose weight lose body fat as a way to become more healthy because that's where you are, versus performance. And then I would say, okay, so the extended period of absorption is like 24, 30 hours. So you don't have to eat right after you work out to get the benefits of the protein in that meal. So what I would say is don't try to force yourself to eat because, you think that you have to get protein in right after your workout. I would say after your workout, wait until you're hungry to eat. And then when you eat, just make sure you have a nice serving of protein in that meal.
Cool. Well said. And for me with protein, it's always for myself and when explaining to my clients, it's always just trying to center your 3 meals a day around either a lean meat or some kind of legume if you're not a big meat person. And just going for those lean meats like fish, ground turkey, chicken, maybe trying to limit the amount of dairy or pork and ground beef if you can. But it's as simple as just centering I love when people tell me that they had a chicken Caesar salad with a nice chicken breast as the center of that salad. And then obviously they're getting their veggies and parts and stuff like that. So it's as simple as just making each meal centered around either a dairy or a lean meat and just working on that protein incrementally throughout the day and stuff like that.
I think too, micronutrients are so important. I think most people I meet don't eat enough vegetables.
Yeah.
Most people are not getting 10 to 12 servings of vegetables in a day. And a lot of that reparation, that repair that happens also comes from those micronutrients, not just protein. So I would say check in on your veggie count too.
Absolutely. Do you have any other fitness myths that you'd like to debunk?
We covered so many. I had a short list. Actually, so many of them came up in conversation. I would say the only other one I think that may be worth mentioning, because I do hear this one a lot, is that when people come in and say they just want to tone, like, tell me what that means to you, because in my mind, what tone is your muscle naturally has a set tone to it, and that's how it functions. Like, that's how you stand up. Like, that's how you can have form to your body. If you didn't have tone, you'd be flaccid, like, all over. So if what you mean by that is that you want to see more definition, then we're looking at your composition again to see, okay, do you have a good base, a foundation of strength, and do you have enough muscle that if we lost body fat, you'd have, muscle to seat.
Yeah. So this is typically something that you see, and I think this ties into another interesting fitness list that comes up in the women population a lot, is they don't want to get bulky, and they're afraid of weight training and strength training leading to putting on a lot of size and mass, and that's just something that a lot of women are typically afraid of. And this is such a common issue that is brought up that I'm definitely glad that you mentioned this. And oftentimes my response to that is that women are just not genetically like made up to put on massive amounts of size like men are, because of our testosterone levels and a number of other different factors. So unless you're, as a woman, spending 2.5 hours in the gym a day, eating a huge amount of calories and protein, you're very likely just not going to be like genetically even be able to put on large amounts of like muscle, just because that's just how our genetics typically are. And so all we're doing with our strength training is giving us that lower body fat percentage and muscle that is so advantageous to our everyday lives, and just giving us that lean look that we're all kind of looking for. And so that is one of the biggest misconceptions that I have to try to get out of, especially of my female clients' minds when we're doing our progressive strength training, for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I think it ties into a bigger issue of kind of like the patriarchal, like misogynistic overtones of most of advertising, and just in general, the way that our institutions are structured in our society. A lot of women try to take up as little space as possible. They're afraid to look strong because they don't want to seem masculine, and they want to seem like they're willing and able to surrender and be meek and desired by men. And the thing is, you hit it right on the head as far as our frames generally aren't built to hold mass in the way that people are afraid of gaining it. And we would have to really work super hard at building muscle in order to build it. I've been there. I've been like, probably I could have competed in my years ago. I wanted to see what I looked like. And I was sore all the time. I was like, I had my limited mobility. Like, my mobility definitely decreased.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say I'm limited, but I definitely felt the difference. Like, when I would run, I definitely felt it changed my gait. And I was so sore. My joints, I was just sore all the time.
So in that time, how much were you working out and how much were you eating?
Man, I was working out 6 days a week, and the eating part, I was just very strict. I was eating very clean and very strict, and I was eating 5 times a day. That was when I was doing that. Yeah, so it was really hard. And I guarantee that anybody who's starting this journey is not going to want to do that, is probably not going to have stick-to-itiveness to do that kind of training in order to gain that kind of mass. And I did it without any injections, without testosterone. Oh my goodness. So there are some women who are taking, hormone replacement and saying, look at me, I'm doing it natural. And no, you're not. Like, if you're taking something, then you're taking something. And so I think people are free to do whatever they want, whatever makes them feel good, whatever serves them, and whatever your philosophy is on for your long-term health. I just know that if you're not taking testosterone and you're not going to, be in the gym for hours a day, 6 days a week, 6 to 7 days a week, and eating so perfectly all the time to be able to maintain that muscle, and you're in a stage of life when you have the ability to do all of that, both financially, time wise, body wise, you're energetically, like
all of the variables have to be perfect
all of
for
them
that to happen.
Yes, like I was in prime. It was my I was in my prime, you know what I mean? I mean, I'm still in my prime, but I was in my prime where I was still looking to be an elite athlete.
Absolutely.
Now I'm looking to be an elite human. Do you know what I mean? Who's athletic.
Yeah, and like we touched upon that, like that amount of strength training that the average female client or just casual exerciser is doing is typically just going to lead to working towards a healthy amount of body fat and muscle that will lead to just better outcomes in every aspect of life, whether that be the efficiency at which your body burns calories or being able to just move through life efficiently and effectively and being able to do the things that you care about.
I just want to say that I hope people can get, like, there's nothing wrong with any of that. I think it's really about what your goal is. So there's no judgment, no matter what, you want to look like or what you don't want to look like. There's no judgment. It's just about, having the facts and then having a strategic plan to get to your desired results. And if that's just wanting peace of mind and harmony in your body and your life and good relationships and all of the good stuff that life is built on, then educating yourself and then working with someone to devise a good plan is the best way to go about it.
Absolutely.
So this has been a great session. Again, if you don't know who we are, my name is Takia Geddes, and I am the creator of the Kinetic Life Revolution, a life and lifestyle activation coach and kinetic specialist. And Anthony is a certified personal trainer and behavior specialist. And we are both avail ourselves to you. I do so with free consultations for those of you who are looking to start your journey, especially online. I do free consultations, so just shoot me a DM. And I can be found at Instagram at the true Takia. And Anthony, where can they find you?
You can find me on Instagram at SolidLife98, and I also love to answer any questions that you guys might have, and I tend to post some helpful like fitness content and just posting my workouts and stuff like that. So,
woohoo! Awesome! It's been our pleasure, Anthony. It's good to see you, bro.
Absolutely.
Have a wonderful day, everyone. Peace and love.
All right. Thank you, guys.